On a nicotine-stained wall behind the bartender are the remains of a valiant competitor. It's been said that the bigger-than-life fish was defeated by none other than Hemingway himself. A story that's never been proven, but has been told for generations. With eyes on their smartphones, patrons rarely notice the colossal fish, and one cannot help but wonder if this remnant of yesteryear would still be swimming if it had been released. Out of a passion for fishing, our guest Mike Emerson started the Catch and Release print shop, a company dedicated to preserving the lives of our noble competitors while capturing the memories of our contests. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us today on the Remote No Pressure podcast. And the reason I reached out to you, Michael, is just because I saw your product, and it's very unique. And one of the things, I've caught some great fish, but one of the things my wife does not want on the wall is a big stuffed fish. And you offer an alternative.
Oh, really?
Yeah, believe it or not.
I've heard that a time or two. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Even though my last name is Troutman, I do have a little bit of leeway there. So pictures are okay, but stuffed fish are not. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing and a little bit about your company, Michael?
Sure. Okay. I started it about a year ago. The idea was simply I take a lot of people fishing. I wanted a little thing to commemorate the fishing trip that I could actually give to people. So what I started doing was, and there's always something like the pictures never do the fish justice as far as like how big they were. So I thought it'd be cool if I could make a print to the actual length that the fisherman catches, and then kind of in the corner, then I stamped some field notes in there. I have a minor in biology, so I have they kind of have a biological feel to them. So I put some field notes in the corner about where they caught it, date it was caught, the species, and things like that. Whatever, actually, it's customizable, so whatever they want in that. So I wanted just a nice little leave behind that was more economical, obviously, than a mount, but was a little more. People are always trying to show you with their hands, how big it was, because it never until you see how long they are. It just doesn't do justice to the grandeur of the fish. So I had the idea to do it, and I was doing it for a while with people I'd take out. I have an artist, a buddy of mine, who now is my business partner, but he has his master's in printmaking, and he's an illustrator. So I said, can you draw a largemouth bass, because that's primarily what we go for here in Central Illinois. He said, sure. So he did it, and I started doing it. And then another friend of mine said, hey, you should make a business out of that. So one thing led to another. We got some printers, and now we're up and running. We print the fish to the actual length. We use archival paper, archival ink, so they'll last a lifetime and beyond. And that's kind of the gist of it. And it's a lot more economical than a mount or taxidermy. Plus, we promote catch and release fishing practices. So another tenet by which we were kind of formed our business on was fisheries conservation and fairly compensating artists for their life's work. So Diane Peebles, she does most of our saltwater fish, and she's out of Florida. So she works for the state of Florida. If you ever get like the fishing regulations down there, you'll see her working that. And then Karen Talbot recently has joined. She's from the East Coast, so she'll have a lot of the species up there. So between those three artists, now we have virtually literally every species in North America. Wow. I mean, Joe Temeller has done it. Universities and things will reach out to him to do like everything from the smallest minnow that's like a recently discovered subspecies, and so he has 30 years of just the catalog of everything. So once he signed on, we were then able to. We started with only like 10 fish in our catalog, and now we have, like I said, a complete catalog. So that was big for us. But yeah, Joe's a great guy. I've had coffee with him a few times over in He lives in Kansas City, and his technique, I mean, he taught me a lot about it's scientific fish illustration. So he'll literally go through and count every scale. It's a pretty tedious process, but very, very good. So we now have the great illustrations, and then we have the files, and then we actually just then print them to the actual scale of the fish. That's how we do it. So some people think, okay, do I need a picture of my fish? Our artists do have the capabilities of making your particular fish with every little, nick in the fin and things like that. That's been around for years, and that's would cost thousands of dollars. What we do is we take the same illustration and we just resize it to the actual length of your fish, and then individualize it, customize it to you with the stamp in the corner with your name. We fill it out, and so that keeps the price within reason. So we're finding now people don't have to have. It's not just the huge fish, right? It's not just the monster that gets mounted or that they commemorate with our prints. It's like, I went out with a friend of mine. We had a great time. I just want to commemorate the day. I had a guy, just a couple of days ago, a 14-inch bass. Even a 14-inch bass, largemouth, which you catch those all the time around here, but when it's on paper, it's pretty impressive when you actually see the length of it printed out and hung on the wall. But it gives people the opportunity to, like I said, to commemorate not once in a lifetime fish, because it's not prohibitive. Like a mount would be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. My prints are typically around the $100 market, some below, some above. So. Wow. But yeah, we don't actually, like I said, a lot of times people send me the picture of the fish. I'm like, that's great. I'm a fisherman. I love to see it, but we really, we don't need it. Or if you did want to commission an artist to do your fish, you could, but that's not really what we're doing.
Oh, great.
That's not actually, we've never had one. Once I propose it to people, I said, well, we can do it. And I tell them the cost, and they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll just take the reproduction illustration. So that's kind of how we've been doing it. So,
well, that's great. That's a great way of, and I've never even thought about that. Go out with some friends and may catch a couple small brookies, and we just want to commemorate the day. That's a great way to do it. Now, I know, we've talked briefly before. You said you like using the woolly bugger fly and catching bass, and you enjoy, the fly fishing for bass. And me, even though I'm in the middle of trout streams, I still love catching smallies in the summertime. But are you an outdoorsman by nature? Have you always been an outdoorsman?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My dad introduced me to fishing. We'd go. We wouldn't catch a lot, but he always took me out, and I didn't become a serious fisherman until probably my late 20s. But I was always outdoors. He'd take us out west, and we'd catch trout on spinning gear in the Deschutes River in Oregon. I remember, memory camping along there in the late 80s, and actually it's probably the early 80s. But yeah, he just always had us out there, and I didn't get into fly fishing until later in life. Still around here, we do a lot of strip mine fishing. So we've found that in a strip mine, unlike a river, it's got its own unique style of fishing. It's difficult to get the presentation. A lot of the largemouth, especially, they're sitting on their ambush points on the weed lines and things, and a lot of times they'll get spooked by the action of the fly rod. So a lot of times we'll take it with the best intentions of using it, but we'll pull out the spinning gear, and just because, like I said, the motion of it, and I'd be interested in any feedback if anyone does do largemouth fishing on strip mines. But so I reserve my rod then for when I go out, when I go fishing out west in the streams. Or there are streams around here on the Illinois River where you'll have some smallmouth still running up in the creeks in the spring. And I think it's, when you have that moving current, it's just kind of hides you a little better from the, hides the motion that's going on above the water. So,
yeah. Now, you had mentioned, Michael, you started this company, you said about a year ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so and no offense, but and people can go on our blog and website and see the picture you sent me. But I see a few gray hairs, and so I'm assuming that this isn't your first job you've ever had. So can you just go can you go through that process on what made you take the leap? What made you really I know you mentioned earlier in the podcast you would do this for your friends here and there, but for you to take the leap.
Sure. Well, I'm still in it. I mean, I got a foot on the dock, a foot in the boat, so to speak. It's during the day I work in an accounting office, and I'm been in the financial services business for about 10 years, and before that, I mean, I was always an entrepreneur. Before that, I had my own contracting company. So but always wanted to get into the industry and learning a lot about the fishing world. We've done some shows and things. We're doing one of the biggest shows, I think, if not the biggest, ICAST in Orlando in July. So, but it's I like I said, I'm in transition right now. I still have a day job, and then this is every night, weekends. I work on my fish print business, so it's still in transition. We're getting in a lot of lodges in Canada and Alaska, and we have some places in Florida that we're in. But we're still. I mean, I just kind of thought to myself, what industry would ideally I want to be in? And if I could marry my passion with fishing with my career, that's ideal. So if nothing else, I mean, it affords me the ability to visit the lodges in Canada and different places, and supports my fishing habit. It's something that hasn't really been tested. I mean, the industry, the mounting and taxidermist industry, obviously that's been around for years. It seems to be waning here in the last few years. It's not, you alluded to the fact that, it's, and we hear it a lot at the trade shows that, the women, someone's wife perhaps, or, spouse doesn't like the look of the dead fish on the wall. So we get a nice response from the, from the wives usually.
When you go out fishing, I mean, do you feel, or when you're outdoors, I mean, you had mentioned earlier, Michael, that you're an outdoorsman. When you are outdoors, I mean, does that just give you a sense of relief? I mean, do you just feel this spiritual connection? Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. In the summer, I'll be on the water at least once a week. So from my driveway to when my canoe, I fished out of a canoe. When my canoe's on the water, it's literally 30 minutes. So I have a system down. I get out there, and I mean, absolutely relaxing. Definitely a spiritual component to it. I'll have friends along, and jokingly, it's my church, if you will. When I'm out there, so I definitely feel the connection with nature. I think everybody needs it, and that's why I try to get people out there. I try to get them in the canoe, even if they've never, they don't fish, they don't do this. I'm like, just come out, and I stick them in the front of the canoe and just kind of immerse them. We're here in Central Illinois. It's tough. You got to work hard to find it. But I'll find you the fish. I'll get you on the fish, and I'll get you in a place where it's just very picturesque. Usually the sun's setting. We'll take along a few cocktails, and it's absolutely a great thing.
Now, when you take people and expose them, what is their reaction usually when you take them?
Well, it's a lot of time. I mean, there's a lot of hunters here, a lot of fishermen, but a lot of times it's their first experience, and I know probably your listeners can definitely, have similar circumstances. But it's a guy's first time out. They've fished a lot. They fished as a kid, but they never had anyone who could teach them. They never had the person who could actually put them on the fish, show them the presentation, show them actually hook one. So that, knock on wood, I've always been able to. One time, like last year, there was this 13-year-old kid with his dad, and the sun was setting, it was getting dark, but we got him his fish. So yeah, I can always say I've always gotten people, they've always caught fish when they've gone with me. So I'm proud of that fact. But yeah, so it's everything. I could tell, they're not going to be, sometimes they don't, they're not going to be lifelong fishers. Some people, it's not for them. They don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially I'm catch and release, and some people look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, well, what's the point? If you're not going to eat it, what are you doing? And then I'm, and I sit there and think, and I'm like, well, maybe you got a point there. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I enjoy it. So I'm going to keep doing it. But yeah, no, so some people don't get that fact. They're like, so you go out, you catch fish, and then you let them go. I'm like, yeah, that's what I do.
That's great. What's your most memorable moment fishing?
That's a tough call. Of course, I've got 3 boys, so they're all teenagers now, but one just became a teenager a couple of days ago. But definitely their first fish. I always like getting, kids their first fish, like their friends and things. I always like, and we actually have a print that commemorates the first fish. I don't know if it's on our website yet, but it actually has a stamp that we put on there that says it's your first fish. So we do everything from like a tarpon down to first fish, usually like a 4-inch bluegill.
Right.
So, I enjoy getting kids involved, seeing if, they still get really excited about the whole process,
Mm-hmm.
and, so they love it, but, so many different, I've just been fortunate. The geeky side of me wants to say, like, fishing, the Snake River, like a couple summers ago, I was catching tiny cutthroat on a float, but I was just having the time of my life because it's just a legendary fishery,
Sure.
Just being, just out there, along the Tetons, going up in Jackson Hole into the kind of the higher streams and catching just these tiny, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't even know what they were, but there's a smaller, maybe a golden trout or something, maybe some subspecies, but they're high up in the mountains there, and the gentleman there was telling me that, this fish can be actually very old, that just with their limited diet and the extreme temperatures, they just kind of stay dwarfed. But there's so just like a little vestige population up there. But as I mentioned earlier, fishing with my dad in the Deschutes River, fishing with my grandfather was a great angler. My uncle's down in Missouri, southern part of Missouri, just catfishing at night, just trout lines, things like that. It's just a full gamut, I have appreciation for all types of fishing, I get it all. With our prints, I do, which I was most surprised about, because my artists, they'll do large runs of different species, and they say, oh, the trout fishermen, they'll buy the prints, and Joe was saying, he once ordered like he had to do 1,000 run of like catfish, and he's like, I could not sell enough of those catfish. He's like, he ended up throwing like 500 prints away because he's like, I just couldn't. They weren't buying them. But what I've found with my prints, we have been selling. The catfishermen. I'm actually doing one for the state record holder here in Illinois, 5-foot flathead, or approximately 5-foot flathead. We're going to print a life size in a couple weeks, and then different catfishermen have been reaching out to me. They like the process too. It's my understanding, and I'm not, that with catfish, because they're thin-skinned, they're difficult for taxidermists anyway, and mounts for those, for large fish like that can be pretty prohibitive. So yeah, like I said, the full gamut of fishermen, and I have an appreciation for it all. I've done it all, from, carp fishing to fly fishing in Jackson Hole. So, yeah, absolutely. But I'm still learning. That's the neat thing about my job. I mean, we've got prints now in Labrador, Canada, where the Atlantic salmon come in, which I was not familiar with the species. It's, it runs up the tributaries there. It still comes to the East Coast to a limited extent, but just learning all the different, types of fishing and what people are doing all around. That's probably one of the more rewarding things about my job. I mean, the 5 Pacific Run, salmon, the Dolly Vardens, different Arctic grayling, which I had never known about, a beautiful fish. So yeah, just learning about the different species. Like I said, that's one of the more rewarding parts about what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, and it's funny that you brought up catfish because being raised in Southeast Texas, I mean, catfish was a regular part of our diet. And then I moved up to Michigan back in 2002, and they up here it's a skunk fish. Like, we don't eat that,
Oh yeah.
No way.
Right.
We had a whole franchise called Catfish King all over East Texas, where you go in and get catfish, so it's interesting.
We're all up to the same thing. We all like being on the water. Mm-hmm. Some people, and that's, we promote fisheries conservation, but we're also developing a new stamp for ours that's just, instead of catch and release, we can leave that off because I know a lot of people don't, they catch and they keep, and as long as you're responsibly harvested, we're going to have a stamp that says, like, responsibly harvested. I mean, because, it's not so much that you have to let it all, let every fish go, but we just want people to be mindful of it, I guess, more than anything. And with some of the saltwater guys, I mean, sometimes they'll have to, if they're out, they get a mahi on, and they got to use the gas because, you have clients on board, and it's a powerful fish and it's dangerous. So, as long as people are, mindful of their limits and not just overfishing, and, I did Canoecopia up in Madison, Wisconsin this year. It's the biggest, it's a big expo for, annual convention for, canoes and kayaks and things. And a woman came up and she said, we have this program up here in Wisconsin. It's called, what was it called? Catch your dinner, I think. So what they'd go out, they'd catch one fish, and then they'd bring it back and they prepare it. And there is something rewarding about eating what you catch, I mean, but I think just the days of the big stringers and things where you're just really damaging a population in a small body of water, taking out, the breeders and things, when you have that big stringer of adult fish, those days, hopefully, are, especially, the states around the country, they're limited budgets. I mean, we're not putting fish in the water in Illinois like we used to. I mean, the hatcheries down here, I think it was at 60 million, 30 million, and this year it's going to be like at 12 million what they're producing at the local hatcheries. So we even have to be more mindful of it. But yeah, like I said, I'm not opposed to, someone going out and, catching and keeping, but when guys are filling their, when they're dead, you just got to be mindful. I mean, and some species like, around here, the crappie and the perch, they have to be managed, or else they'll overrun, because these strip mines, it's a closed ecosystem, and they'll just eat everything. So they have to be, it has to be managed. It has to be a balance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I think most of our listeners, especially, it seems like in the fly community, catch and release, there's a pretty high priority on that, on the catch.
Yeah, well, you guys are, yeah. It's, I mean, when you're dealing with some native populations, and some very delicate, the trout, very delicate populations. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, that's a no-brainer. And then, barbless hooks and all that. I mean, you just can't, you can't be overcautious with some of those native species.
Just talking to you at the interview, Michael, I mean, it seems like you're the kind of person taking people out in your canoe that have never experienced the outdoors and making prints so they have that memory. It seems to me that helping people and exposing people to the outdoors and to this lifestyle comes natural to you, and helping people is a natural thing for you. Would you agree to that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You enjoy that.
Absolutely. And I've always had an appreciation of the art behind it. I wanted something that I had my minor in biology, so I wanted something that kind of had like a natural history feel. So we do everything in like a grayscale. And then we wanted some with the field journal stamp. We wanted something like you'd see in a biologist field journal, that type of feel. So they're somewhat unique, but yeah, just kind of merging the two passions of art appreciation and fishing, which is kind of a natural fit for me.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like something on Hemingway's wall or something. It's kind of old school, but
yeah,
really cool.
And what I thought the need was, I mean, there can be some hokey fish art going on out there in the world.
True.
I mean, so I just wanted something that would appeal to me, something I'd put on my wall, something classic. And like I said, that had the scientific bend to it, and I think we've accomplished that. And I hope people like it.
Well, great. Well, we're going to put all the links up to your website and to your Facebook and things on our website. And also, you sent over a bio. I appreciate that. We'll put that in the show notes so people can find you. But just for the podcast, can you, in case people are driving in their car, not everyone can log on. What's your web address?
Sure, it's easy. It's just www.prince.fish. That's it.
Cool.
So Prince plural, www.prince.fish.
And how would people get a hold of you, Michael? Do you have an email address?
Yeah, sure. It's mike@prince.fish.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you spending some time with us, and you're doing great work. I just really appreciate all you're doing. Thank you very much, Mike.
All right, thank you. It's nice talking with you.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
And thank you for joining us today on the Remote No Pressure podcast. Be sure to check out our website at remotenopressure.com and sign up for our mailing list. We'd love to hear from you. On our next episode, I'm super excited about interviewing Nathan Cobb from Cobb's Custom Rod Builders. Until then, tight lines.